Hey everybody, it's Dr. Quinn. I want to do a quick video and review these questions with you with the student sample paper. So let's take a look at the sample paper for this writing assignment, Forrest Lawn. No, it used to be called writing assignment 4, now it's writing assignment 3, but it is the report to the supervisor. And in the questions in the discussion topic, let's just go through them together and let's see what we see. Does the memo provide details about the contents of the report? Explain why Tom did or did not provide details. So if you go into the sample paper, we're looking at this memo. You'll notice the memo shape is to, date, from, subject, and then the blurb. Imagine that your memo is an email and the report is going to be attached to it. That's a good way of visualizing this. I like to see salutations, but one of the things that I disagree with some of the other advice on here is I don't think you need to give good news before bad news. I don't think in a business sense that you have to do a lot of kissing up before you get to the point of the memo, right? Imagine in the office, you've probably been talking in an informal way to your boss about this already, and they have a sense of what's going on. So I don't think you need the first paragraph at all, but you will see Tom, our memo writer here, saying, I'm outlining a few improvements that could make Forrest Lawn stronger as a company. This has to do with job functions and duties. Remember, you don't have to litigate the report in the memo. The memo is just saying the report is attached. Basically, the details of these observations are in the report. And I don't think we need the discussion of impressive history and unleashed potential. That just is, that doesn't mean or say anything. I think you could just say the memo shows how Forrest Lawn can be improved. So in the student sample, I'm kind of trying to show you how I would have given feedback. I like salutations, dear Richard, best Tom. But remember, the memo is like 100, 150 words. It does not have to be belabored. Just you want to get to it. You don't have to be too forceful either. You can say, show how it can be improved. They're potentially concerning. You don't have to say, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. You have to be careful with your tone, certainly. So that's how I would have addressed number 1. And then this one says, recall a video lecture about breaking out your text. Mention 2 or 3 examples of how Mason applies this in the sample summary, executive summary. Remember, an executive summary is a miniature of the entire report, and you can see it broken out into sections. We've got a bolded section that says problems, a bolded section that says solutions. I prefer headers instead of bolding entire portions of sentences. So if you had a problems and a solution section, I think that would be effective, because what that would do is that would allow you to telegraph the shape of the report to follow. In addition, there's a lot of detail in here that's specific from the assignment scenario, but none from the outside research. And so as this is organized, you see it broken into the problems and solutions section and different mini examples from the business. But I would also probably include specific research data that entices your your boss to read the rest of the report. So that would be my note for number 2. In the problem section, how many overall problems is Mason addressing? And in the suggested solutions, how many solutions? So if we take a look at this in the problem section, I see single points of failure with examples. I see potential use of abusive data with examples, but you'll notice single points of failure and vendor agreement are bundled together. That's not how it's organized in the executive summary. In the executive summary, it's set up with single points of failure and then vendor agreement separately with abuse of data in the middle. You want to mirror the shape of the report. You want to work on those PARC concepts of consistency. So I put single points of failure and lack of vendor agreements together, or just leave it in the organization it is, but then break some of this out later for consistency's sake. So 3 issues are 2 up here and 1 there. I mean, my feedback in going over this assignment would be, I think 2 or 3 issues are plenty, so you can do what's called a deep dive. You can take your time, you can show the academic research, and you can show the work that you did in the library databases. You go to the peer-reviewed sources. That's the expectation of the assignment. Oh, and then let's look at the solutions, and let's see the solutions. I think there were 4. Cross-training, job rotation, mandatory vacations is 2, reorganization. Well, there's way more than that, actually. Cross-training and job rotation are 2. Mandatory vacations is 3. Reorganization and establishing 4, 5, 6 different issues are mentioned as fixes to the 3 main problems. How does Mason refer to the various employees? They read the report where they feel offended. Okay, that's That's interesting. So remember, you have a primary reader who is your boss, and then you have secondary readers who may need to look at certain sections of this, especially as it pertains to their job. You want to make sure you're not offending them. Like, you can see how our writer tried to not offend colleagues. Jared Stone made a sound decision by doing X, Y, and Z. But then there's the however. Let's see. Yeah, I think the tone is fine for continued good relationships with the colleagues. You just want to make sure that none of it's obnoxious or demanding, and most students don't have an issue with that at all, right? But you have to fix, like, you don't want to tell your boss, you have to fix this right away or else. Well, I mean, I think the data should be able to convey that information, right? Text is bold-faced. What Park principle does this demonstrate? So when you're looking at bold-faced information, it adds contrast, right? It allows that section to stand out to the reader. You don't want to overdo it. Like, we don't want an entire paragraph of italic or an entire paragraph of bold, but in certain places it can be quite effective. So it's not bad. Now, Kether, and Morrison are cited in the solutions. What does Mason do in the report immediately after that? So when you look at the section of solutions and we see Kether and Morrison, we see an APA in-text citation. Remember, the requirements for this assignment require APA documentation, in-text citations with author names and years, or business, like, or organization if no author name is present, like the UN or World Bank, right? Copyright year. But if you're using academic sources, and we go into the library databases, and I've pulled up one where I did a one search for cybersecurity small businesses, and I forced it to look at peer-reviewed. Let me go back and just show you how to do this while I'm here. Let's go back to the UMGC library. I went to scholarly articles only. That's peer-reviewed, and I did cybersecurity and small business. This will force you, the assignment overview says 2 of your 6 assignments must be from the library databases, must be peer-reviewed. And then, of course, I narrowed it to not 1991, because cybersecurity information from the 90s won't really be applicable at this point. Maybe 2021. And I'm going to apply those filters, and then I'm going to remember them to make them stick. Now I'm down here. Let me show you. You can see when we click on any of these articles, if you get like the PDF of the article, you're going to see the page numbers. Where did the PDF go? I want you citing those page numbers where they exist. It helps the reader find them. So if I were to borrow information from the Lit Review, and I borrowed this information here, this is on page, it's on page 3. See, it says 3 of 25. You could just say page 3. It also looks like it says page 1880 in its other formatting, but within the article, I'll accept 3 or 1880. That's perfectly fine with me. So that's how you do that. And you'll notice in the sample, page numbers are specific. If I can't find that quote in the document, I'm going to assume that it's hallucinated or it's faked, made by AI. And that's going to have significant detrimental effects to a student's grade. So you're going to need to make sure that you always include page numbers where they exist. If it's like a Forbes online only article and there are no page numbers, I still need to be able to find that quote. And the quotes that you use have to be specific to what's happening within that paragraph. Like it has to be related. Okay. What does Mason do in the report immediately? Okay. Comment on the 2 graphics. All right. So the last little note here is commenting on the graphics. If we look at the graphics here, I'm going to argue that the graphics aren't that effective. They're not the worst that I've ever seen. The worst ones I've ever seen are students, like for this one, assignment who would do an AI image of somebody pushing a lawnmower. And I'm like, no, I don't want any AI images. Not at all. But what I'm more interested in is what images can you create, like a basic 3x3 table that's specific to the topic. This is showing original organization. This doesn't have to be cited because the student created it themselves. I mean, I prefer like a flow chart or a hierarchical graph, a pie chart if you're talking about parts of a whole, something. You can even borrow infographics as long as you cite them, but as long as they're specific to what you're talking about. I'm not a fan of clip art. Like some of the worst graphics that I've seen on this assignment are students who will just borrow the image of a hotel, or this is a boutique bed and breakfast, basically. Or somebody will show an image of 2 people sitting across a table shaking hands, like a business image. That doesn't convey any data. I'm looking for very specific images that help make a point. Some of the worst cybersecurity images are images of locks. Let me show you. Let's see. This is what some students will put in. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this image. Or how many times I've seen this image. These images don't convey any information whatsoever. They're artistic, but they're not effective. So I'm just going to tell you now my personal pet peeve so you can avoid that. All right, I think I've answered the points here. If you borrow images, cite them, avoid clip art, avoid AI images, and avoid basic Google images that don't convey specific data to the issue. If we were in this particular article, for example, and there was an interesting infographic or an image in this article that is specifically related to what you're talking about, and you cite this article, this image, you could cite this image and your authors would be Al Somali et al., and that would be fine with me as long as this source is in your references. So that's the feedback I have for you so far. I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope it helps you understand the scenario. I definitely want you to go into the Charleston Hotel, our situation and our writing assignment, and just go again, like I mentioned in earlier announcements and discussion boards, just go over this with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure all your sources exist. Make sure all your quotes exist. Make sure you did all of the writing of your assignment. And if you have any questions on that, or if you have any requests for AI use in any capacity, please email me to set up a conversation.